Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, January 19th. Thanks for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. The Montreal Canadiens are back in town, and they practiced earlier this morning. Here's some news to report. Therapy day for Alex Texier. Guess who was on the line with Nick Suzuki and Caufield? Yeah, you guessed it. Kirby Dach. Marty St. Louis says pretty good chance that Kirby will be back tomorrow, but didn't confirm it, didn't guarantee it at 100%. When asked who his starting goaltender will be tomorrow night, Marty said he hasn't quite made a decision yet on that either. Patrik Laine was on a line with Evans, Bolduc, and Valeno as he was rotating on that line. So we'll discuss Sammy Blais out of the lineup last game, Jake Evans in the lineup last game. The Montreal Canadiens come from behind win. Kiefer Sherwood being dealt earlier today from the Vancouver Canucks to where? To the Montreal Canadiens? No, unfortunately not. He went to the San Jose Sharks. We'll talk about that. Where does that leave the Canadiens? Much talk of Blake Coleman and much more. Who's out when the injured players come back? Is a conditioning stint in the cards for Patrik Laine? The coach was asked about that too. And thoughts on Brendan Gallagher. I know it's something that, of course, Eric Engels wants to talk about with Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca, who also had a great piece on Caden Gooley, who was out of the lineup for a while with the injury and then came back. And some of the struggles that he may have had from time to time and what he was able to do to get back and what was causing him problems and whether or not Kirby Dach could take a look at that and maybe learn a little something. So we have so much on the plate, even though you don't see a plate in front of me. There was one before, but I ate everything that was on it. But I have much more hockey talk and Canadiens talk lined up for you on the Sick Podcast in 3 short minutes. Stay with us. I'm Marinaro.
It's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Turn up your volume. because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
That's right. And the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, as well as Playground, as well as the Geloso Beverage Group and Bittt TV, and also the Slush Buster. And of course, our major sponsor on both the English and the French podcast, which the French one also goes Monday to Friday. Of course, weekdays at 10 a.m. is Betway. We will get to all of them in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, it's time for Eric Engels.
Eric Engels, presented by Allard et Emon, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977.
Allard and Emon for nearly 50 years. Allard and Emon has set the standard for HVAC service in Montreal. Their focus is simple, unmatched quality, and dependable comfort for your home. Visit allardemon.com to learn more. Allard and Emon, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977. Eric Engels, what's going on?
I'm tired.
You must have played the 3 hours of pickleball earlier today.
Not
Is that it?
Not that. I think this NHL schedule has finally caught up to me. We get to January and we live in Montreal. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But from December until March, it is a pitiful, horrible winter wasteland. And it's just, you get up and you go outside at 7:30 in the morning and it's freezing and dark out. And then at 4:00 in the afternoon, it starts getting dark again. And it's just, and I'm not complaining. Okay. I have a great job.
Okay.
I love my job.
It's okay if you complain. You're human. And by the way, you said December to March. I'd had November and April in there too. But anyway, I digress.
Just saying, there could be some good days in November. And sometimes it gets warmer at the end of March and a little bit into April. And then we have that last snowstorm that nobody expected, but should have expected because it's happened your whole life.
Yeah.
But the schedule also, the guys who are playing the games, I have total respect for them. To play 5 games in 7 nights is obscene. I'm not complaining. I love my job as a writer. 5 games in 7 nights, staying up until midnight to write and file, and then my brain's going 100 miles an hour and I can't fall asleep till 2:30 in the morning and I'm up early in the morning. It just gets to a point where it catches up to you. It catches up to all of us.
And everyone needs to recharge the batteries. So you know what? If you have a chance to take a couple of days and go away, I would totally understand. I did it myself during the holiday season, and I got to tell you, I came back recharged and ready to go. I think I worked overtime every single show that I've done ever since then. But listen, I'm going to tell you something. You know what's cool about what we do, besides the fact that it's a lot of fun and we love it? We'd probably do it for free, and the fact that we're getting paid is pretty cool, is that it gives us, covering their games gives us almost a better appreciation of what they go through to actually play them. Because, when you say 5 games in 7 days, and the Canadiens in Ottawa on Saturday night played their 7th game in 11 days, if we're tired covering the team, could you imagine actually playing those games and traveling and practicing?
Honestly, they have a better deal than we do. They get paid a ton of money. They're on the charter plane. They get fed anything they want. They've got their masseuse, their trainer, their physical therapist. I brought this all up for a reason, not to really complain.
If I can, you did something that was pretty cool, because I caught up with you in Tampa.
Yeah.
Of course, we were at the game, and you told me that you were thinking of driving to Sunrise to Fort Lauderdale, like the next that right after the game. And I
did.
don't know if you did or if you did.
That's exactly what I did because Emily was meeting me in Sunrise, and I wanted to be there when she got in.
Wow.
It was it was a lot. Look, a lot of travel. Before the trip of Florida, Tampa, and Carolina, I was in Toronto, Denver, Colorado Springs, back to Denver, Pittsburgh, New York, and the day of the New York after the New York game, my flight home got canceled, and I got in a car with Guillaume Lefrançois from La Presse and drove back to make it on time to the game at the Bell Center against the Oilers. So it's just been, I've been on the hamster wheel, but I didn't bring all this up just to complain. I brought it up because if you look at the Canadiens last week, where they completed that 5 games and 7 game stint, but still had to play in, Buffalo and Ottawa. Like, I just want to go through it, that the Canadiens traveled to Washington after playing Monday. Okay.
Correct. Versus when they hosted Vancouver.
They flew to Buffalo. From Buffalo, they flew to Ottawa. Marty St. Louis wasn't on the ice on Friday. He had a family engagement. And when I caught up with him in Ottawa, I just said, "Is everything okay, Marty?" And he said, "Absolutely. It was my son Mason's 18th birthday, and I had to be there for it. I just couldn't miss it." And I thought it was amazing because you think about the travel the Canadiens did, and they flew home from Ottawa, by the way. Marty stayed home and stayed in Buffalo. He flew to his home the next day, or flew to New York and then drove to Connecticut or whatever it is. It was there for his son's 18th birthday. Had a party for him with all of his teammates, paid for his teammates and teammates' parents, and then got to Canada on time for his morning meetings on Saturday with his players and the coaches and with us at 11:45. Coached the game, which started late because there was one of the weakest tributes you've ever seen to the Canadian Tire turning 30 years old. It was like a guy reading from a Wikipedia page. I don't know what that was.
That's Ottawa for you.
That was a delay none of us needed. And then the game went to overtime, of course. Marty speaks 20 minutes after the game is done, after players have done their availability, whatever it is. And then he sprinted to the airport to fly back home for Mason's hockey game on Sunday.
Which was canceled.
Which got canceled, as you read about in my story at Sportsnet. It just, this guy is a very dedicated coach. He's probably exhausted, like all of us are, from the way this schedule has run and how all-consuming mentally his job is. But a tremendous family man to do all that stuff, and obviously was back in Brossard running practice on Monday, and the logistics that went into doing that and the planning he had to do to make sure he could be on time and not miss anything other than what probably wasn't supposed to be a practice on Friday. Like, the Canadiens decided we could sit in the hotel at Canada, or we could use the ice that's available to us. So they went out for 30 minutes basically. I thought it was a great story. I thought it was really nice. It really warmed my heart that Marty got to go see his son on his 18th birthday. That was cool.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind. He's a great father. We've seen examples of that in the past, and we'll continue to see examples of that in the future. I would hope to think, though, it's something that every dad would do, but I understand that his schedule is incredibly occupying and tiring, and he was able to pull it off, which is pretty cool.
He's fortunate the space was there in the schedule that he could actually get there on the day of his son's birthday.
Yeah, I like to hear these stories because you know what, the coach comes back a happy man, obviously, after having spent time with his family, and it's pretty cool to hear. So we talked about that schedule. The game in Ottawa, it's funny because, full disclosure, was about 5 minutes left in period number 3. I was about to tweet the Canadiens had 4 big 4-point games in the last week: Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa, and they lost all 3 of them. And as I was about to tweet it, Slavkovsky narrows the lead to 5-4, and I said, "Okay, I'm not tweeting this. We'll see what happens." And then obviously Carrier ties up the game, and then they go to overtime, and we saw what happened. Cole Caufield, who has to be the best 3-on-3 player in the entire league, I would think, because he's got 4 game-winning goals in overtime.
I mean, if you watch the way Suzuki, Caufield, and Hudson play together 3-on-3 and what they've kind of brought to it, it's a pretty unique way of playing it. And I think there's a lot of teams around the league that are copying it now. There have been different things that the Canadiens have copied from other teams because they were horrible at 3-on-3 for a long period of time. And now they're kind of setting the standard, and soon enough, I mean, you could see as the season's gone along, it's been defended a lot better. More games have gone to the shootout. But once they get the puck, they break the puck into the zone, and they create that 3-man cycle where they are continuously looping around the top of the zone until there's one guy who kind of breaks free and darts through the middle.
The guy that usually breaks free is the guy that ends up breaking free because of what Marty St. Louis would call a legal interference. Yeah. Obstruction légale.
I mean, look, it didn't go this way in Ottawa. They gave up a golden scoring opportunity for Tim Stützle, who I think no doubt would have buried if he didn't whiff on the puck and kind of lose a shoe. Hudson was gassed at the end of that 33 seconds because he had put in a huge effort at the other end of the ice where he almost ended the game, like in the opening seconds of overtime. Finds Caufield. I wrote in my piece, it was pretty fitting that Caufield blasted the puck right through Marilainen for that goal. Like, Marilainen never cheated towards Suzuki on the play. He had the aggression to come out of his net and try to close down the angle, which he did successfully. And for the puck to go directly through him was indicative of how bad he actually was in the game. And I empathize for sure, but the Canadiens were pitiful for 55 minutes of that game, and they deserve to lose. And I think they got real fortunate that Ottawa's goalie was as generous as he was. And I think they better keep that in perspective because their schedule slows down now, and they have 8 games from here to the Olympic break. Last year, they were in a similar spot where it was quote unquote a chase to the break, and they lost 7 of 8 games. This time around, if they don't treat what happened in Ottawa more like a loss than a win, because I know they were happy to steal a point, an extra one at least. Like, you're playing Minnesota, Colorado, Vegas, Boston, Buffalo twice, Winnipeg. Like, this is not going to be a cakewalk from here to the end, and they better get it together because they looked not good at all against Ottawa.
Okay, so having said that, I mean, you talked about the schedule. I have to ask you, the 3-4 point games that we talked about, Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa. They lost 2 of them. They should have lost the one in Ottawa. Marty St. Louis said that too. They should have lost the one in Ottawa, but they didn't. Are you overly concerned, or do you bring it down to fatigue?
I don't think it's as simple as fatigue. I think there's some mental execution that slipped a little bit. I think you have to credit the opponents as well. Like, Ottawa, it's funny. Before the Canadiens played Detroit was in Ottawa, where they beat Ottawa in a very similar fashion. They were outplayed, and the goaltending did not hold up. And I was speaking with Ben Sherratt in Detroit's room before the Canadiens game, and he was like, they have a real good team over there. Like, they have a real good team, and they are hard to play against, and their goaltending is, I don't know. And, like, that was a conversation between us, leading into the Canadiens game. Detroit had been playing fantastic hockey leading into that game and came out of it still playing fantastic hockey. Buffalo had won 14 of 16 games before they played the Canadiens, and that was a back and forth affair that I thought the Sabres deserved to win. But like Marty wasn't wrong that it could have gone either way. The Canadiens still had some sharp execution, tried, they had a pretty good effort considering they were coming off a sequence of 5 games in 7 nights. The opposition, it's all to say that the opposition is so strong that you cannot let your guard down, and you have to be urgent about seeing certain trends in your game slip a little bit. And that's the point that I was trying to make about the Ottawa game. Like, it was they weren't as good as they should have been against Buffalo, and they were worse, much worse against Ottawa. and they have to treat that with urgency against Minnesota on Tuesday.
Marinaro with Eric Engels. This podcast was recorded a little bit earlier than 10 p.m. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset-light 3PL that's driven to be different from cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico to coast-to-coast shipping in both Canada and the United States. Energy moves it all. They're fast, reliable, and powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. If you need a real partner in transportation, contact the team at sick@shipenergy.com and see how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. It's hockey night at Playground, as if watching hockey wasn't thrilling enough. Now, every goal means more action on the felt. Before the puck drops, every poker table is randomly assigned a player from the Montreal team, and when your player scores, boom! Playground splashes the next pot with up to $200 in chips. Catch every game on Playground's big screens all around the room, so you never miss a goal, a play, or a splash pot. Also brought to you in part by, you see that fridge behind me, Bittt Tibi. That's right, for big games. You want the best beers on your team, whether it's Bittt Tibi IPA with its bold flavor, Bittt Tibi Lager with its exceptional smoothness, or Bittt Tibi Ultra Lager, which is ultra light and ultra refreshing. They always have a place on your team. Bittt Tibi, brewed for special occasions. Please drink responsibly. Eric, I'm just going to go back to Saturday night, and we'll get to today's practice in just a couple of minutes. But one of the things that garnered a lot of attention going into the game, of course, was it was the first game back for Jake Evans, and who gave up his spot in the lineup? It was Samuel Blais. I am not at all surprised by this. I've mentioned on more than one occasion on this show, I appreciate Blais a lot. I like what he brings to the team on the fourth line. He knows his role. He has his limitations, obviously. I think he gives everything he has and more. But if I take a look at the time on ice, Eric, I take a look at the time on ice, not only of the game before or the game before that, but for the most part, while these injuries were going on, the Canadiens forward that had the least amount of ice time among regulars was Blais, with Beck being sent down to Laval, of course. After Blais, it's been Gallagher. After Gallagher, it's been Valeno. After Valeno, it's been Bolduc. So with that said, when Evans made his way back into the lineup, I wasn't surprised that it was Blais. Now, when the others make their way back into the lineup, and we'll talk about Dach and we'll talk about Laine in just a couple of minutes, well, it might not necessarily be Gallagher. It might be Valeno ahead of him. Gallagher might be the third. It might be Bolduc. There might be a rotation. We'll see. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But I would imagine if I wasn't surprised, I imagine you weren't either.
No, I wasn't surprised, but I don't, I think it's funny. You hear a coach talk about how he doesn't like when you enumerate his lines. I personally think as the Canadiens get healthier and healthier, lines 3 and 4 are interchangeable and are going to be used in specific roles. And I think your line of Danault, Gallagher, and Anderson, which was a line that I was pushing for the Canadiens to make that change. After the Buffalo game, it was very clear to me, you need a line that could forecheck and change momentum. It's exactly why the Canadiens lost to the Sabres, because Bolduc just, his run of play through 11 games, whether it was Gallagher next to him and Danault or Anderson next to him and Danault, it was just obvious it wasn't a good fit. Now, in the future, Zach Bolduc could be a perfect fit on a line with that, but there's a lot of things that need to happen. He's 145 games into his career, and over the next 80, you hope that he's going to develop to the point where those physical attributes he has to forecheck and bring speed and shoot and score, that he can figure out how to get to the right places at the right time and play within the system and the way the Canadiens like to play. It's normal. It's a normal developmental curve, but for right now, when the Canadiens need something specific, it's not the ideal fit for him playing with Danault and Gallagher or Danault and Anderson. What is interesting to me is Evans has some offensive upside to him. I understand he's not a burner, but he showed last year and in previous years, he has some offensive upside with a defensive conscience, which is he's a defense first player. Mm-hmm. And if you pair him with two guys who are reasonably offensive, I think you can get two lines in your bottom six that have different kind of makeups that are both defensively responsible, and they bring different elements. And so I think if you have a Bolduc with Evans and the other guy on the line is somebody whether it's Valeno or Texier or whoever. I just don't want people to think that if Dach comes in and Texier is still healthy enough to play and he moves down the lineup and Valeno comes out, like, I think it's a better fit for them putting Texier with Evans and Bolduc than it is putting Texier with Anderson and Danault. I know a lot of people are arguing about Brendan Gallagher right now. Okay. I think you need more than a one-game sample of Gallagher, Anderson, and Danault together. They were not good on Saturday as a line, okay? But I think the potential of that line to bring a lot of what we saw between Anderson, Gallagher, and Dvorak last year is still there. Danault is not Dvorak. He's not as quick, and Dvorak wasn't exactly a burner. But those guys know how to use each other, and they know how to play that style of game, and that is a specific type of dynamic that the Canadiens need in their lineup, is that forechecking style of game. And those guys know how to do it, and if they use Anderson the right way, those two guys, and they know how to do it, I think you're going to see them become more and more effective than they've been. I know a lot of people want to argue that Gallagher is not the same player as he was last year. I think he's pretty much the same player as he was last year. He just hasn't been in that specific type of role since the beginning of the season. Saturday was really the first game that he was reunited with those guys in that specific role. And like with Evans, there were three right-handed forwards playing on the same line. It's just not the same dynamic.
He's obviously way off his production.
Yep, he is. Last year if he had 5 goals on the power play, he scored 21 goals. He had a few goals into an empty net, but produced a lot at 5-on-5. This year he's got 3 goals at 5-on-5.
Last year he had 16, correct?
Yeah, he's had more. Well, he had 16, but I think a couple of them were into an empty net, which is still even strength, but it's not 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Look, the argument is in favor of the people who are against Gallagher. For the people who want to say, how are you watching this guy and saying these things about him? I understand that the argument is in your favor. The evidence is in your favor. But I believe that if you have a sample of Gallagher with Anderson and Danault for more than one game, for like 3 or 4 of them, you're going to see all 3 of those guys. I think Anderson's been pretty good since the beginning of the season, but I think you're going to see Danault and Gallagher become much more effective than they've been.
Yeah, I think the line could be good for him, but obviously he's off of the pace. We talked about that. I think he's a step behind vis-a-vis last year as well.
Yeah,
but I hear everything you're saying regarding
what do you want from him on that specific line? What you want from those 3 guys is offensive zone momentum, that they are setting up the next line that comes on. Those guys, like, it'll help Suzuki's line and it will help Kapanen's line if those 3 guys do the specific role they are designated to play together. The Canadiens have not had that all year. Since Dvorak left, it's funny, last year they went from like not having a second line to now they have not only arguably one of the best second lines in the league, they have a second line that is outproducing a lot of first lines in the NHL. It's a huge turnaround. They had one of the best third lines in the league last year with those guys, with Gallagher, Anderson playing across from each other, and Dvorak in the middle. They have not had that dynamic all this season, and it's right now as the games become more intense and more physical and more demanding, that line has a specific role to play, and they have to prove that they can play it. If they don't, then I agree with a lot of the people that have been talking about Gallagher. His spot becomes perilous. Like it becomes night and day for him to hold on to it. Like it's going to be a real challenge if the next few games, if he gets that type of runway with Anderson and Danault, he doesn't need to score. They need to spend time in the offensive zone wearing down their opponents. If they do that, that'll be a line that'll be enticing to Marty St. Louis.
So it was a therapy day earlier today for Alex Texier. Kirby Dach took his spot on that line with Suzuki and Caufield. I've talked about this before when Kirby Dach spent some time with Suzuki and Caufield, and it wasn't that many games. I don't remember how many it was, but that was probably give or take over 3 years ago or whatever it was. I actually liked them a lot on that line. But usually when injured players come back, they kind of bring them in slowly but surely. And defensemen usually come back on a third pair. And mind you, I think Goulet came in, he was supposed to be in a third pair, but he ended up playing close to 20 minutes, I think. And
they played
forwards
18 and change.
and forwards would be, you would think, on a fourth line. But so talk to me. Marty St. Louis says there's a good chance that Dach's back tomorrow. So for me, that means that he's back tomorrow. So good chance that he's back tomorrow. So if Texier is not playing, you see him on that line. And if Texier is playing, where do you see Kirby Dach?
Oh boy. I think if Texier is playing, I still put Dach with Caufield and Suzuki. And I put Texier with Evans and with Bolduc or Valeno or Blais, one of those couple guys there. I just want to be clear, and I think I got some questions on this. The Canadiens can activate Kirby Dach without doing anything else. They're taking him off long-term IR. His salary has been counting the entire time. That's how long-term IR works. It doesn't come off the books. They're tied up against the cap, but he becomes their 23rd player on the roster, and they are under the cap with him activated. So there's no geography to do here. In terms of the lineup, like it's a question of the dynamic that Marty wants to create on his lines. Now, you could take the argument that I was making about Gallagher, Anderson, and Deneau as a line. And if you wanted to pull Gallagher out of the lineup and put Dach in that spot while Texier is healthy, I think that's justifiable too. We'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. I think he should play with Caufield and Suzuki. I think it's never ideal to have three players who shoot the same way playing together, but those three guys had a certain chemistry and a certain skill set complement, especially with their ability. It's a little different higher up the lineup than it is on the third or fourth line. There's a certain complementary skill set between the three of them, and there's a certain thing that's been missing from Suzuki and Caufield since Slafkovsky moved away, that Dach has some of those elements in his game. And what I wrote about today is Guhle coming back, and this is a caution for Dach too. Okay, Dach is a smart player, and he's a poised player. He has the ability to hold on to pucks and make plays. Okay, Guhle last year, you could see his game jump up a level before he cut himself, because he had finally kind of mastered the hardest thing there is to master as a young defenseman, which is realizing you have more time and space than you think. Like, he was the king of making the hard, fast play right away and like not holding onto the puck. And I think this time coming back, for the first time that he's ever had to come back, unfortunately, he's had to come back so many times. He was out for the longest period of time he had been out for previously. He was coming back into a schedule where teams are like well-oiled machines. They're playing, 4 and 6 all the time. The chemistry is there. Those guys have the ability to play with poise. There's no practice time for you to get accustomed. There's no practices. The Canadiens practice today is a rare one of like 3 practices they've had this month, which is why it was really important for Dach and Laine and those guys to come to Ottawa at the end of the week. It's just to say that, like, the poise that Guhle had finally found, he was relying on it when he came back into the lineup, thinking it would be there, and like guys were closing on him so fast that he couldn't hold on to the puck and he was giving it away. And he started talking on Friday about how he was thinking a bit too much, and it's only normal. Like, he's watching the games from the press box, and he has this confidence that he built up last year with the poise that's come into his game. And he's saying, I have time to make these plays. And now all of a sudden you get down at ice level and you don't. And I think the caution for Dach is play simple and play smart right away. Don't hold on to the puck. Move it to the other guys. Create space for them. Don't rely on one of your best skills, which is poise, because that'll come with time as you get your rhythm back. Everybody else is not only in rhythm, they're in like playoff level rhythm. So it's really
Guhle in a nutshell is searching for what Marty St. Louis says Slafkovsky has right now. The play has slowed down for him.
Yeah, like
right?
the play slowed down so much for Caden Guhle last year that he really elevated, and we were seeing the best version of him before he cut himself. So in his mind, that was already developed and it's there, right? But he couldn't rely on it coming back into a schedule where everybody is playing it like playoff rhythm. So he's had to simplify his game, knowing that as he builds his foundation back up, that poise will be there again. It's the same thing for Kirby. He's a guy who likes to hold the puck. He's a cerebral guy who can make plays. He's confident enough to do it. But you are jumping back in when everybody else is already like, it's not like you're trying to catch a moving train. You're trying to latch onto a rocket. I mean, that's the way it is. Like, everybody is so well oiled at this point that, yeah, they don't have time for practice, but they don't need it. The other guys do. Dach needs practice. Guhle needed practice. And the sooner you can realize that you have to absolutely play a simplified version of your own game coming back in this specific type of season, which is very unique, the better off you'll be, the faster. And I think Guhle realized that. You saw a much more simple version of Guhle, and he was effective against the Senators. He was one of a few players that was effective throughout the game. He also, had less ice time. He played under 15 minutes. As he starts to get his footing again, you're going to start seeing the Guhle that can hold on to the puck and make more plays than, more of the plays that he wanted to make when he immediately came back with the confidence that he had already built in developing that skill. You understand what I mean?
I do. So the question is, if Texier is back from his therapy day and he's in his lineup and Kirby Dach is back, regardless of which lines they're on, who comes out of the lineup in your opinion tomorrow?
I think probably Valeno, but I want to say this about Valeno. I find that the discourse around Valeno in the fan base is nauseating, and probably I'm a little too exposed to it on social media, where I don't know that that's necessarily representative of how Canadiens fans feel in general. Mm-hmm. I feel like Twitter, and I've said this before, is kind of like the people who speak the loudest are the people you hear, like the only people you kind of hear. Joe Valeno has done his job. He was supposed to be the 13th forward on this team. He has the best defensive metrics he's had in his career. I understand that it would be a different narrative if he put up more points, but his job is to support and win faceoffs, be an effective penalty killer, grind players in terms of like defensive assignment and work and ethic. Joe Valeno has done everything that's been asked of him, and that's the reason he's remained in this lineup. And I think he has deserved to be there. And that's with respect to Samuel Blais, who has done a really good job as a 14th forward. Do I think now that guys are healthy that Valeno should be a main staple in this lineup? Not necessarily. It puts him a little vulnerable. Do I think that if Zach Bolduc doesn't find a certain rhythm or chemistry with somebody here, or bring his game up, a few notches in terms of the consistency and defensive effort and physical forecheck kind of effort, that he'll be a mainstay in this lineup over Joe Valeno? Not necessarily. So there's a competition going on here, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Valeno's been relied upon. I mean, Marty St. Louis has put him in some positions where you can tell he trusts him. He's been giving him responsibilities. Having said that, I mean, when the Canadiens acquired Danault, you knew that when everyone was going to come back healthy, obviously it was not going to be good for Valeno, because they were acquiring in Danault, obviously a left-handed centerman who can win draws.
And look at how he played as soon as they got that guy. I mean, he upped his intensity. The thing that's I think frustrating for fans watching Valeno is his offensive intention is very safe. I think it's frustrating, particularly because everybody knows he has skill. There's a certain skill set there that should enable him to produce more. And there's this idea that he's kind of just playing it so safe, and that's fair. He is, because he's not going to risk the other part of his job to force the issue offensively. I'd like to see him do it a little bit more.
We saw a glimpse of that skill versus the Florida Panthers on the hat-trick goal for Texier, by the way. Joe has talent. You're not given exceptional status as a 15-year-old just for fun, all right? Joe has a lot of talent, but it doesn't exactly mean that what you had at 15 transpires to the National Hockey League, because everyone develops, obviously, at different stages. I think what's remarkable with Joe is the amount of hits he's completed this year. I mean, he's been top 3 in hits ever since he started to get, some ice time and some games.
He plays the right way.
And you know what? And it's not to make an excuse for him, because once again, out of camp, he was the 13th forward on the team. So, I mean, let's be honest. But my God, I think he's the most snake-bitten forward they've had this season.
He's had some chances, but look, he does not. And I think it's right. I think part of the frustration with some of the more vocal fans about Joe Valeno is that he is not forcing the issue. Okay. especially with his talent. He does have a certain talent level that should translate to a little bit more offensively. But it's just not his job on this team. And like, he's been in situations before where instead of doing the job that was designated for him because he wasn't going to play in the top 6, he was still trying to be a top 6 player in a bottom 6 role. And it wasn't working particularly well for him, hence the movement and where he ended up and why he ended up in Montreal fighting to be the 13th forward. So we'll see where it goes. But I just think I understand the frustration with Valeno from some people, but I think like the narrative that he's useless and nobody could, it's ridiculous to me. Like, I don't know what people are watching. He's done his job and done it well.
Marty St. Louis asked whether or not there's a conditioning stint is in the works for Patrik Laine. He says it's something they haven't discussed yet. Well,
I'm not sure what they're going to do with him.
You're not the only one.
I try to find the answers to every question that pops into my head, and I promise you I've asked, but I don't have a direct answer. You know, it's a decision that ultimately needs to be made so long as Patrik Laine is a part of the Canadiens by Martin St. Louis. And if you've watched this team and how hard some of the players have played and fought for their space in the lineup, not only to keep it, but to have their role increased at any given point, I think it's a tough sell to turn to one of them and say, you're not playing tonight, and Patrik Laine is. And I'm not trying to disrespect Patrik Laine either. He's got a ton of talent. He's got a ton of ability, and without him, they wouldn't have made the playoffs last year. He fired in a lot of power play goals, and without those power play goals, they wouldn't have done what they did. But
I'm gonna ask you a tough question. You think he'll play another game with? Because I get asked all the time. You think Patrik Laine will play another game with the Canadiens this season? I say yes, but it keeps on coming up.
I don't think any of us could give you a definitive. I don't think anybody has a definitive answer on that. And the fact that we're talking about it as a 50-50 proposition, which is probably about what it is, speaks to what the situation is. And like, I have respect for how hard he's pushing himself to get back. I think he's got a little bit of FOMO right now. It's not just this fun for him to collect his paycheck and you know, do what's being asked of him. I think he wants in on the action because he can see how much fun it is. And that's enticing to me. You know, he was left off Finland. Maybe he's got to burn his saddle. And it's enticing to me that he maybe feels he's got something to prove while everybody thinks he doesn't have a place anymore in this lineup. And that in itself might be worth getting him into a game. But like, could you imagine, and there's a lot of people that would love to see Brendan Gallagher put on the sidelines. Could you imagine being a coach who pulls Brendan Gallagher out of the lineup for Patrik Laine in terms of what those two guys give on every shift they take? Like, that to me is a hard sell.
I've been thinking about something the past couple of days, and I can't remember. You probably got a better memory than me. Has Patrik Laine played a shift or a period with Suzuki and Caufield since he got here?
Probably.
I don't remember if he did.
The fact that you're framing it that way, like, speaks to if he did, it wasn't memorable and there wasn't a lot of it. Okay.
And if he didn't, or there wasn't a lot of it, wouldn't it be crazy that if we go back to the day that they acquired him, to think that in his 2 years with the Canadiens, he probably would not have played with Suzuki or Caufield? And once again, I can't remember if he did or he didn't, but obviously you can't remember either. So if he did, it wasn't very long. Isn't that something?
If he did, it wasn't long, and if he did, it wasn't memorable.
On that note, let's just say there's another injury. And let's just say Dach gets an opportunity with Suzuki and Caufield. They can't rediscover the magic they once had together. Is it not worth a shot?
I don't know. It's a lot of ifs. I'm going to say this. Like, who do you think Suzuki and Caufield play against every night? The best players on the other opposing team? You know, like, if they and Texier, one of the reasons he's had more than just a little bit of a look with those two guys is he's been pretty committed to playing both sides of the puck. He's not out there cheating for offense. You know, he's finishing hits. He's implicated physically. He's on the inside, and he's hustling back to help those two guys from a defensive responsibility standpoint, especially in the premium matchup. We've seen Laine do some of those things. I don't want to sit here and say he's done none of them, the consistency in which he commits those actions and commits to the non-negotiables of the Montreal Canadiens has been, it's pretty hard to say it's been there. Like, I think even he would admit that. And if he wouldn't, maybe he doesn't see his game the way everybody else does. I think he's incredibly talented, and I understand the compulsion to try him with the team's best players given his skill set. But you got to earn your way there. Like and maybe people would argue against that and say, what has Kirby Dach done to earn his way there? I get it. I thought Kirby was playing real good hockey before. Like, it was very unfortunate timing, as it has been throughout his entire career, that he gets hurt right as it's starting to click. You know, it's starting to really get back to where you want to see him. I hope he can pick it up fast. He'll get a phenomenal opportunity right off the hop, whether Texier plays or not, to play on a good line. You know, whether he plays with Caufield and Suzuki, or he plays with Deneau and Anderson, or he plays with Evans and Bolduc, he'll have a good opportunity to play with good players. Needs to take advantage of it immediately. As for Laine, until he's healthy, it's hard to play the what if game because so many things could happen. But assuming everybody else is healthy, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I really don't. I don't know what they're going to do with them, and I'm not sure they have the answer until he's healthy and they're faced with that situation and Marty has to make a decision.
All right.
What would you do? What would you do?
I think you got to give him one more look. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, his future's not with the Canadiens.
Then why do you have to give him one more look?
Because he could probably still help you win games this year.
So can everybody he's in a competition with.
I know. I mean,
if he's not your future,
he's a goal scorer, Eric. That's why they make the money that they make. And a lot of players on this team. I'm going to give an example. I mean, Cole Caufield takes shots, and when he takes shots, they just seem to go in. If any other player on that team is taking that shot, they're probably not going in as often as they go in for Caufield. Goal scorers are goal scorers. They're born with something. Patrik Laine's shot is devastating. I've been covering this team a long time, as have you. Yep. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I've never seen anyone shoot the puck harder, any Montreal Canadiens forward, since I've been covering the Canadiens.
Just Stefan Richer.
Yeah, we weren't covering the Canadiens in 91, 92, were we?
Five games for Laine this year. Has how many goals?
None.
Okay, and last year, 20 goals. How many of them were scored on the power play?
I think 15.
Okay, and this year, mostly played average of 10 5-on-5 minutes through those 5 games, playing mostly with fourth-line players.
Yeah.
So, look, I had this thought since we're on the topic.
I know what you're alluding to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if he doesn't score goals,
yeah,
there's not much else he's bringing.
Yeah, and if he can't really look like he keeps up from the fourth line, how is he playing with Suzuki and Caufield?
There was a point where the Canadiens were having 5-on-3 power plays, and they weren't able to hit the net either. I mean, in those situations, I think he can help.
When he was healthy, here's the Montreal Calgary game, which was I can't remember how many days ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Do you remember watching that first period? You must have had the same thought that I did, that like this looked like two teams from different leagues, like in terms of the speed the game was going at for both of them. The Canadiens were playing at ludicrous speed, and the Flames looked like it was so overwhelming for them that they could not keep up in any way.
I think it was 12 days ago. I think in a couple of days on Wednesday, it'll be 2 weeks. So I think it's about 12 days. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't believe.
You don't think he can keep up? Yeah.
I don't believe he can play at that speed. And I think if he was playing a top line role with Calgary, he'd have a hard time playing at their speed. Now,
you don't think he has enough speed to play anywhere in the lineup? Or you just think that for him to be effective in the lineup, he's got to play top 6, and if he can't play top 6 on this team, then he doesn't have a role.
It's a catch-22. I don't think he has enough speed to play up the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he doesn't play up the lineup, it's real difficult for him to be as useful of a player as he possibly can be with the skill he has. He has tremendous skill. No one has ever denied his skill. And I have to say that at times he's really surprised me with his commitment level in Montreal. He's wanted to make things work. He's played hard. He's blocked some shots. He's back-checked. He's done some things that you would hope he would do with this opportunity he was given in Montreal. But the game just moves at a different speed, and he likes to play it at a different speed than the one that the Canadiens play it at. And that's because of his skill set. Like, I don't want to be too harsh on a guy who I was rooting for him to have a phenomenal comeback story here. And I thought his beginning in Montreal was so encouraging and so exciting for him as a storyline. Like, it was a great story. But
3 power play goals in the first 3 games last year.
And look, a lot of people, and understandably, will accuse me of being a hypocrite based on what I'm saying about Brendan Gallagher. I get it. Like, I think there's nights where you're looking at Gallagher and he's not keeping up with the speed the Canadiens play at. Okay, I do believe that Gallagher is being slotted in a role right now that is suited for him to potentially succeed and prove a lot of people wrong, that he could still be the player he was last year, which was a very effective player. I don't believe that there's space for lineup to play in the place he needs to play to be the player that the Canadiens would love to see if they gave him another chance, that Patrik Laine wants to be. That's what I would say.
February 5th is going to be an amazing, amazing day for Brendan Gallagher. It's a day where he's going to go on vacation, I would think.
Yeah, it should be a great day for me too.
You're right. He's going to go on vacation, and you know what? Their next game back is going to be, so their last game is going to be the 4th, and their next game back after the Olympics is going to be the 26th. When do you think they'll resume training? On Monday the 23rd? Or on maybe even the 22nd, because there's a skills competition for the Canadiens on Sunday the 22nd of February.
Sorry, can you repeat what you were saying?
So the last game before the Olympic break is the 4th of February.
Yes.
Then on the 22nd, on the Sunday, they have a skills competition presented by Rona. And then their next game is the 26th. So I imagine they'll get back for that skills competition on the 22nd.
I think they'll be back before that. I think there's a 1 week break. There's an Olympic break. I think they'll probably be back practicing before that. But I could.
And the players are practicing without the players who are at the Olympics.
I could be wrong. You know, speaking of which, you're bringing up that last game in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
that feels like the trade deadline to me.
Really?
I know there's 6 games to go after that. But, well, let's put it this way. Trade deadline's March 6th. And when's the first game back from the Olympic break? The 25th?
The 26th. Well, you know what? You want to make a deal at that point for several reasons, but one of which is you have a couple of weeks to actually get the players settled in, this, that, whatever, all ready to go. So when you start up on the 26th, because if you end up pulling it off on the 6th of March, you're on the West Coast, you're in Anaheim, you're in Los Angeles the next day, then you got to come back to Montreal after that. Then you got
there's 3 deadlines this year, and the 2 ahead of the actual deadline is where all the action's going to happen.
15 games, by the way, in 28 days in the month of March. 15 and 28.
I think right before you get to the break is like a real deadline. I think immediately coming out of the break and the freeze is another one. And then you've got 6 games to the actual deadline. It just seems like most of the business is going to get done on those first 2. And I look, some of it's gotten done in the last 2 days.
I would imagine it's going to snow between here and the trade deadline. So introducing the Slush Buster, the new innovative snow brush designed to tackle winter's mess with ease. From heavy slush to stubborn ice, the Slush Buster clears it all quickly, keeping your car clean and your hands dry. By the way, mine really came in handy over the last weeks because I was noticing I was getting a lot of snow accumulation right there in between where the tire goes, and I didn't know why. And I realized that there are no mud guards on my Tesla, or at least I didn't order any, or I think I probably ordered some and they actually maybe came off at one point and I never replaced them. So a lot of snow accumulated there. So you go in with the mallet and you break it, and it was very, very durable. I mean, I was impressed. From heavy slush to stubborn ice, it clears it all quickly, keeping your car clean, your hands dry, smarter, stronger. Built for Canadian winters. Use code Tony15 for 15% off on your order. It's available for the first 500 purchases. I saw my family Doc last week and said, by the way, I ordered a slush buster. Thank you, Doc. Also, if you want to get on the action tomorrow night between the Canadiens and the Wild were in Toronto tonight. Go all the way with Betway. Get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 in your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Let's hear from Cole Caufield on seeing injured players come back, and then Caufield on when Doc played on a line with him and Nick Suzuki.
It's awesome. I mean, those are guys that you really miss when you're on the road at the rink, and you don't have those guys out of practice. They it really makes you appreciate them, and it's always fun having them back in the lineup. They bring some energy, some matureness. Obviously, Jake's a special player, and to have Kirby back, that's going to be huge too.
Got cut off there.
I think we created a lot of offense. I think just both sides of the puck. He can be good in all three zones, and he's a very smart hockey player. So it's been a while since I played with him, but whatever the lines are tomorrow, he's going to be back with a lot of pace and energy.
All right, looks like they're looking forward to that. Jake Evans spoke on his return to injury. From injury last game.
Everything. It's speed. It's the physicality of it. Just certain plays. It's hard to replicate that in a practice. And as much as our training staff did a great job getting me back, it's you just can't replicate a game. And I'm happy with how it went. I felt like I just played a pretty boring game for everyone and pretty simple. And felt like as the game went on, I felt like I got caught up to speed a bit more.
Fantastic stuff. All right. Okay. So now speaking of trades, and we talked about the trade deadline Friday, March 6th, and you talked about various deadlines for you going up. Actually, even you gave the date of February 4th, which is going to be the last game before the Olympic break. There was a trade earlier today in the National Hockey League. There's one guy that was traded that is a guy that a lot of people say could help the Montreal Canadiens because he delivers hits, and he delivers a lot of them. And I'm talking about Kiefer Sherwood of the Vancouver Canucks, who is now a member of the San Jose Sharks. In return, the Canucks receive Cole Clayton and a second-round pick in 2026 and a second-round pick in 2027. A couple of days ago, Vegas Golden Knights acquired defenseman Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames. So we knew that these two players were available. And when we talked about Canadiens' needs, we talked about them, especially Kiefer Sherwood, because we thought the Canadiens would probably be pretty comfortable on defense. So Sherwood's name came more often as he is a forward. Both of them have found new teams. Eric, Blake Coleman's name keeps on coming up. What are you hearing?
Yeah, listen, I think, first of all, it's interesting that Sherwood and Anderson are the two guys that went. Canadians with varying degrees of interest on both guys, but more interested in the profile of players. Let me grab a sip of water here. Sorry, I was almost joking. Boy, would they like to have a monster right-handed defenseman next to Lane Hudson. I think that would be a nice addition for them. And I'm sure they'd like a forward who can score and bring that type of grit, probably from their third line, to go with an Anderson and Danault or whatever, checking line, however you want to frame it. Coleman fits the mold, right? Like, that's the reason he's been brought up. It specifically would be a better kind of addition than Kiefer Sherwood because A, he's not an unrestricted free agent, and B, he's left-handed. I think as interesting as he is, there's going to be a lot of interest in him, and I think he's got a 10-team no-trade list, and my understanding is he'd need to move off that list to end up in a place like Montreal. So I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I'm not sure this is going to happen either. But if I were Kent Hughes, and more likely Kent Hughes than Jeff Gorton, I would want to know what the Rangers' intentions are, and not for Artemi Panarin and not for Alexis Lafreniere, but for a player that I think they have on their team that would be the best possible guy that the Canadiens could get for this year and moving forward. That said, because he's that guy, I'm not sure the Rangers are even willing to listen on the player. But for me, Will Cooley is the number one guy I would go after if I were Kent Hughes.
I've wanted Will Cooley for like 3 years. I love Will Cooley. He's big, he's strong, and I think he plays on the top 9, which is perfect. But I also think he's got the potential to move up in the top 6. I think he's a poor man's Slafkovsky.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting way of looking at him. I think what he is bringing exactly what the Canadiens would need in a specific portion of their lineup. And that's why you're hearing about Blake Coleman or Kiefer Sherwood. And I think he's just a younger version of that. He's 23 years old. If you're retooling and you're planning on moving that guy out the door, I'm not sure that's a smart move.
Based on the press release where they said that they were going to part ways with players that have helped the Rangers win before, and they want to keep young players, and they're looking for young players and prospects. I would be shocked too, but I like Will Cooley a lot. 20 goals last year in 82 games.
But what if you were dealing with a team like the Canadiens, who has not only young roster players who are capable of scoring goals, who are playing lower down the lineup, that don't necessarily at this point look like top 6 players with your team, but they could become that at a later point with other teams? What if you had prospects? What if you had
Cooley for Bolduc? Would you do it?
Plus prospects, picks. Look, if I'm Chris Drury, I'm locking Will Cooley in my basement and not moving him anywhere. But I don't know. I think also, if I'm Chris Drury, I'm listening on everybody. I want to hear what people have to say and what their thoughts are and what they're coming to me with now that I've signaled to everybody that we're going down this road. And I think Blake Coleman brings that experience that maybe Cooley doesn't have. But to be able to get a player potentially at that age who has that profile, which is specifically what the Canadiens need, much more than they need some other things that people would like them to get, that would be enticing to me. I said it before, the Canadiens have not had a checking line that they could create the type of dynamic they had with Dvorak, Anderson, and Gallagher last year. You get that guy, it's a game changer. Now,
I like Cooley a lot.
I don't want people to run wild with it because I don't think the Rangers will move him.
Me neither. I like him a lot.
No, I'd be power dialing to find out what it would take to get him, and I'd be willing. San Jose overpaid a bit to get Kiefer Sherwood, who's going to end up on a 5-year deal at like the type of money that you don't want to pay a guy who suddenly woke up at 29 and started scoring goals for the first time in his career and throws those hits because 2 years into it, he's going to be a healthy scratch. Maybe he won't be, but I'm just saying there's like history with stuff like this. Coleman is going to fetch a monstrous return because they don't need to trade him out of Calgary, and because he has some control over it. If a team like Tampa comes calling, if I'm Craig Conroy, I'm asking for a lot. If I'm going to give up a lot and I have the potential to get a guy who helps me not just this year or next year, but for years, I'm willing to do that. I think the Canadiens are in a position of strength to be able to do something like that without giving up necessarily their best prospects to do it either. So I'm just saying, I would be power dialing. I would be, what do you want? And okay, we're not going to do that, but we have this, and this, and we can make it work. And potentially, you're dealing away a guy in a guy like Bolduc as part of that package as a young player who replaces some of the goals that Cooley is capable of scoring. Bolduc is going to become a really good player. Of course, and the Canadiens have a lot of players who are going to become really good players. And the question is how much long-term investment will they make in any given one of them when they can get better now? Like, they can do something that makes them better now. That becomes the real question. I've said this before, Tony, and I'm going to say this. Yeah. Bolduc has value he has value and potentially more of it on the market than he does to this current edition of the Canadiens.
Where he's struggling to find the fit right now. I mean, it's about 11 or 12
and
games.
He still has 10 goals. He still has 10 goals. In his last 82 games, he has 24 goals. He's not this guy has scoring ability, and when he figures out really how to play with the 4 other players and like consistently find the best routes on the ice to take to be able to remain in balance with the others, it's going to unlock for him. And if the Canadiens are patient, it'll happen with them. But given that there's a lot of teams out there that would like to have a Bolduc, his value to them right now might be higher on the marketplace in these types of deals that they should be considering to make themselves better for not only now, but for the future. So it's just, I'm not sitting here saying they should trade Bolduc. I'm saying they have to view him as an asset because there's some other teams out there that view him as an asset.
Eric, amazing stuff tonight as usual, and we went a little overtime, which is cool. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it. Thanks, man. Enjoy the Canadiens and the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild tomorrow. It's going to be Lane Hudson versus Quinn Hughes tomorrow, so I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Thanks, Eric. Always is. Ciao for now. There you have it. Eric Engels. Special thanks to our sponsors. And Eric Engels was brought to you by Allard and Aimont, of course, for nearly 50 years. They've set the standard for HVAC service in Montreal. AllardAimont.com is their website. Experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977. Also, special thanks to Betway, to the Slush Buster, to Bittt, to Tibi, to Playground, and to Energy Transportation Group. And special thanks to Shane Gaumont and Master Control. Thanks for watching the Sick Podcast, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow morning en français à 10h le matin. Le Sick Podcast. Merci. And I'll be back tomorrow night after the game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Minnesota Wild. And joining me will be Pierre Maguire, Maxime Lapierre, and Brian Wild. It should be an amazing postgame. Talk to you then. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.